You've got to hand it to Yvette Cooper, our current Home Secretary, at least for the time being. She really has a handle on things, hasn't she? She's really got her finger on the pulse. She really knows what is going on. Here we have this headline of blinding intelligence and perception. Riots show UK has lost respect for police, warns Home Secretary. Good grief! Who would have thought that? Who would have come to that conclusion? My goodness me! That woman is a genius. And I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. Okay, to start with, I'm going to talk about this microphone because I've had people telling me it's getting in the way and I shouldn't have it right up here against my face. Well, I have it on very good authority, a broadcast sound engineer who's been giving me a lot of very valuable advice about sound, that this particular type of microphone was constructed because shock jocks were waving their arms around, punching the air and bellowing into microphones and were wrecking the equipment. And this particular microphone, which is called a Shure, was developed to protect the microphone from 6-foot hairy fellas damaging the equipment and costing the broadcasting company a lot of money. And so what the Shure did was they put the diaphragm right the way down here. Apparently inside here is a sort of can, and the diaphragm is right down at the bottom. And so in order to capture the sound, you have to talk really into that can, which reminded me of those things. Do you remember when you were a kid, you know, 2 tins with a string between them and you could talk from one tin to the other? So look how far we've gone in technological development. I'm not going to tell you how many years later, and I'm still talking to people through a tin. All right, that's it. And thank you, sound engineer. I'm not going to give your name. I don't know whether you would want me to do that. But now I understand what's going on with this microphone. Okay, so here we have an observation of blinding obviousness from the Home Secretary that UK has lost respect for the police. Now, when you get a weak person trying to show how strong he or she is, you very often get meaningless threats and a lot of sound and fury and bluster, don't you? And if you want a good example of the weakness of the position in which our police feel themselves to be, quite rightly, it's with this particular article. UK police threatens to prosecute Elon Musk because he was making observations about the current situation here in Britain, which is definitely not good. Oh, is that illegal to say? London's Metropolitan Police Commissioner threatened to charge foreigners amid the UK's ongoing far right. Now, they could only be arrested if they actually came to this country. Much as I would like to meet Elon Musk personally, I wouldn't advise him to come to this country anyway. And they are only going to stop people or make them think twice before coming here, which will wreck what's left of our industrial base as well as our huge financial empire here. So when the head of London's Metropolitan Police says that he's going to arrest somebody like Elon Musk because he's put out a few tweets, this is damaging the United Kingdom as an entity in every way. And I would advise him to be careful, because this fellow here owns Twitter. If he wanted to, I'm sure he could find the dirt on anyone who's used Twitter. That's why I suggest that the fight that Humza Yousaf, the ex-head of the Scottish National Party, he should be a bit careful about going for Elon Musk, about pursuing this vendetta he has, because it seems from external evidence that he has used the Scottish budget to get relatives out of Gaza. When he was advised to give a charitable donation from Scotland to UNESCO, which is the organisation that helps children, he overruled the advice and gave it to UNRWA, the very people who were in direct control of how refugees could get from Gaza across the Rafah crossing into Egypt. And strangely enough, just after Humza Yousaf moved this money from the UNESCO to the UNRWA, his in-laws got out of Gaza. And you can draw your own conclusions about that. But anyway, there might have been a couple of Twitter messages that this fellow here might have been able to view. And I would advise Humza Yousaf to be very careful about that. But that's by the way. We have a policeman in London threatening to arrest a foreign national for voicing legal opinions in America. And that's an absolute definition of weakness. However, this is not entirely the fault of the Labour Party, because a lot of people lost a lot of respect for the police during the COVID crisis. And again, that was the Conservative Party's doing, because they gave the police an enormous amount of power without defining any limits to that power. So you get stuff like this. More than 28,000 people were convicted of COVID rule breaches. And then even The Guardian, which is not the most free speech of papers, says data analysis shows people were severely penalised for relatively minor infractions of coronavirus laws. And here we have later on 4,000 COVID lockdown fines are dropped by the Met Police. Here's an example. I put this onto a private window because it demanded that I accept cookies. This one's in the Sun. Here's a woman who was stopped by lockdown cops. She was queuing for coffee with a friend and her son 2 miles from home. And the fact is, she was legally allowed to queue for coffee. They were allowed to sell coffee. People were allowed to buy it. But she was 2 miles from her home. And they were telling her, you're not allowed to be 2 miles from your home. And I'm not so sure how legal that was. And then 2 women were surrounded while they were on a walk because they had cups of coffee with them, and they were just taking the coffee and going for a walk in the park, and the police stopped them, telling them that those cups of coffee meant they were having a picnic. And if there's anything that would reduce your respect for the police, it would be this. Now the police are here. I'll get rid of these now. Now the police are fighting, are tooling up and wearing riot gear and pushing around people who are basically from the same, many of them from the same social strata that they are. And this is the fault of this government. This government is just taking what the Conservatives did to the nth degree. Yvette Cooper said a soft approach to justice had led too many people to feel as though crime has no consequences. But I want you to notice this in particular. Yvette Cooper pledged to restore the public's faith in the law, as she warned would-be rioters that the streets would be flooded with police this week. There's the threat. Now, writing for the Telegraph, she said a soft approach to justice had led too many people to feel as though crime has no consequences. The operative words here are here. Writing for the Telegraph. The Telegraph, which is like so many other papers, in fact all of them that I can think of, pushing the government line, pushing the lie about the EDL, which does not exist. I mean, that is an absolute, straight-out lie. And nobody is calling them to task for this outside, in the MSM. And they're pushing this complete lie. It's almost incomprehensible. And they're doing it because you're getting the Home Secretary writing for the Telegraph, as opposed to the Telegraph not getting any stories at all because they're being boycotted by the government. And there you have the whole thing in a nutshell, and people realise this. They can see it. The people who are involved in the riots could see the way the police were acting and how the EDL wasn't there. And then they read this in the papers. They know there's something wrong, even though many of them might not know exactly what it is that's wrong. Anyway, that's Yvette Cooper writing for the Telegraph. No doubt she'll be writing for the Daily Mail and the Guardian and all the others as well. And that's why we are not only losing our respect for the police, we're losing our respect for the MSM as well. Now, I had lost that respect a while ago, and many of you who watch this channel and the others also feel similarly. But there are many people who just watch the BBC, and they've been getting their story from the BBC, and even they will be starting to wonder about what's going on writing for the Telegraph. Okay, well, that's just a side issue. Back to the main event. It's not the soft approach to justice. It's the approach to justice that is soft in some directions, but not in others. For instance, the people who were mobbing in Birmingham, the people of a certain ethnic protected group who were mobbing in Birmingham, the people who threatened a news reporter on air in Birmingham, the local police commissioner said, we've talked it through with their leaders and they're mostly doing their own policing, so that's all right then. Of course crime has no consequences for these people. But some kid who goes out to watch a riot, he gets banged up for, I don't know how much it was, yeah, it was several months. So this is a lie. The rioting that erupted across British towns was a disgraceful attempted assault on the rule of law itself. And yes, a riot is an assault on the rule of law. But for people to respect that rule of law, it has to be equally applied. You can't say that a certain community is policing itself. If the police are applying the law, they should be applying the law. Two all. And that's why we have lost respect for the police. Do you think any of this message is going to get across to Miss Cooper? No, me neither. All right, till next time. You can help my channel by clicking like, by subscribing, by clicking the notification bell, and by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels are in the description, also links to donation sites, but really the best way you can help me is simply by clicking like. Thank you.